Right, hopefully this is working. If not, I'll just transcribe it and find something different. So I've made it to the oak and I'm just going to have a brew. Start off my day. First of all, I'm going to take some dust out of my mug. So something I'm going to ramble about today is rites of passage and initiation, because I was at a thing the other week, and during the meal part of it, a gentleman started talking about how the Western civilization, how UK, American, all that sort of jazz, is the only civilization, culture, group of people that do not have rites of passage. And I would concur. However, what I think is also overlooked is that we don't have the people who are capable of facilitating and holding that. Because, like, I am 44, there was no rite of passage for me. I had certain experiences that I would perhaps call becoming an adult. Not all in one hit, more sort of stumbling about and working it out as I went along, and making a lot of mistakes, hitting a lot of bumps in the road, shall we say. And because of this, I probably did shit that if I had had someone a bit more balanced, a bit more aware themselves to point me in the direction that perhaps I should have been moving rather than the directions I was moving, maybe I wouldn't have hit some of the stumbling blocks, or maybe I would have been better equipped to hit the stumbling blocks. But there wasn't that person around. I mean, I was very fortunate. I had my dad, I had the uncle that isn't really an uncle, I had scout leaders, I had all of them good people in my life, and I still made some horrendous blunders, some of which certainly left their mark, certainly had impacts on where they were going, but there was no one fully integrated, organised and balanced themselves in a way you could be like, oh, actually, this is where you're at, this is where you should be going, and this is what I would suggest. However, as well, we seem to think that the rite of passage is just a one-off event, a one-time thing. You know, you steal the teenager away from the family home, you initiate them into being a man, and they come out knowing precisely what they're meant to do for the entirety of their life. And I would argue that that is not the case, because if you think about it, the first time you meet the woman you think you're going to marry and then split up, that is certainly a rite of passage. Or man, you know, whomever, the person you wish to spend the rest of your life with, and then that goes wrong, for whatever reason. That's an initiation, that's a rite of passage. The first time you sit down at the end of a day and realise, I loathe my job, I hate my job, I can't keep going, that's a rite of passage. For those of you who get married, getting married is a rite of passage. Choosing not to get married is a rite of passage. And these are all things that, you know, at 16, I certainly wasn't prepared to expect that, you know, this is going to happen and I'll be fine. I was just blithering along, hoping for the best. And I think even if I had been initiated and given a role and a place, that still wouldn't have prepared me for every single thing. Becoming a father, 100% was not anywhere near what I thought it was. I mean, it's the best job I've ever had, but it has brought about more changes than one would expect. And whilst everyone says this, you don't actually know it until you are. But the fact that I'm trying to kind of skirt around is there's numerous opportunities for people to have a rite of passage experience and a way to build oneself up or prepare for the next phase. I'm in my mid-40s now, I suppose. Blimey. And the next kind of big step for me is going to be that my kids will move out sooner or later, and that's fine. That is the next step in their journey, but that's going to be another step in mine as well, and that's another rite of passage. At the minute, I'm in the sandwich generation. My children still need me, but my parent needs me. That is another rite of passage one doesn't always consider, the death of the parent. That's always that's a shock initiation, no matter how braced you are for it. But all of these can and should be supported by community, by those who have walked that aspect themselves, by those who know what to anticipate. And whilst everyone's path journey differs, the overarching themes as a rule are the same. And because of that, we need folks who have experienced it, and we need people who are willing to share that they have experienced it and that they have survived, because there are certain aspects that certainly feel unendurable and unsurvivable. And then we need people who can reassure that yes, this is perfectly normal to wake up one morning and think, fuck me, this is not the life I thought I was having, this is not what I expected. And it's about how we can nurture this, develop this, share this, and keep people going so that the day-to-day life can be one that isn't constant humdrum and sham and drudgery, but something that's enlivening and that is walked within community, with a group who either are on your level or those that are a bit further along the road. And I see it a lot where there are individuals who are where I would consider them like traditionally they would have been elders. They're in their 60s or 70s, and they're just boys, or they're children in adult bodies, and they've never had that opportunity to kind of sit and reflect and look. And I think that's quite a shameful thing for society to say, that we have these gentlemen who are still wandering with a programming or a tale. I don't like the sort of technological terminology. We're not machines, we're humans, we're animals. They're still carrying this tale that they are meant to be doing X, Y or Z, and they're not seeing where they actually want to be going, or how they are actually meant to be doing it, and where they're meant to be roaming accordingly. And perhaps some of them are starting to ask these questions, and perhaps others are just hunkered down, enduring in denial. And remember, denial is not just the river in Egypt, it's a strong place. And some of them have never reflected or even felt the call to reflect, and that's fine. But for those who do, I think having peers or mentors or respected associates, friends, elders, who can help them to kind of initiate through the passage of each section is something that's really lacking in the world. And I'm not saying I have the answers, because I don't. It's just a reflective moment in my day, and I know that it's something that I felt was lacking in the world for myself, and it's something that I hope I can offer to folks who are younger than me, is an opportunity to come to me, work with me, spend time in nature, maybe not under this oak, but under the oaks, around the fire, and find a way that they can move through each phase rather than it being a one and done rite of passage. I'm thinking more of a ongoing mentoring thing, having someone who I hope and certainly aspire to be a emotionally balanced, positive male role model. Not that I'm perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but to give them the opportunity to have someone who's there who still wants positively for them, wants them to be the best they can, will hold them to the standards that they wish to hold themselves to for accountability, and to enable them to have this non-judgmental space by the fire in the forest where they can discuss with me whatever's on their mind, how they can work through it, help them to work through it, because the other thing is you don't need someone going, this is the answer, because that's the answer for them. What they need is people who are going to hold the gaps, help them pull it together and to find their own direction, rather than being told this is what you do, because then they're just following a tale that they've been told rather than discovering their own path through the world. And there's nothing to stop them being equipped with things that others have found useful. You know, if you're going out on an expedition, you're still going to take a compass and food and shelter and so on and so forth, but you might pack your own preference rather than what other people say you need to carry. So for example, I'm always going to carry a thermos flask. Other people think thermoses are completely unnecessary. So, you know, you're still a unique individual, but there's still overarching things that would be beneficial for you. And my hope is that with my work, I can offer this. I can provide a grounding presence that at times will call them out. At times we'll say, well, you know, last week you said you wanted to do this, yet this week you're still telling me that you haven't done this. And give them the opportunity to really develop their own processes and routes and strategies and all of that good stuff. So if you have spent the last few minutes listening to me rambling and you feel that this is something that yourself or one of your kin or your loved ones or your child or your partner or your brother or your mate down the street would benefit from, please send them this video. Please encourage them to consider either speaking with myself or finding others of my ilk, depending on the locality and where they are. And please remember that we are doing our best. We're trying, and we're pushing against conditioning and the tales that we were told, and the lack of being able to carry the tales that we were told, or even not realizing they were tales we were told rather than tales we told ourselves. And I'm available for conversation, for mentoring, for coaching, for peer support. You just need to drop me a message.